Okay, so did you see the new budget announcement? It looks like there are some pretty significant changes to income tax slabs, especially in that new tax regime.
I did, yeah. It's quite a shakeup, isn't it? It seems like they've really restructured things.
Absolutely. I mean, the biggest change it looks like is that the 30% tax rate now kicks in at 24 lakhs instead of 15. That's a pretty big jump, isn't it?
It is. And they've also introduced a 25% bracket for incomes between 20 and 24 lakhs. So there's definitely more nuance in there now. It's almost like they're trying to make things a bit more graduated.
Right. So it's not just this huge leap from 20% straight to 30%. There's a step in between now. I wonder who exactly that benefits the most.
Well, it probably helps people in that specific income bracket, right? They're now paying less than the top rate, but still contributing a fair share. It's like adding a new gear on a bicycle to make hills less steep.
That's a good way to put it. So, if I'm understanding correctly, this new tax regime is now the default, but you can still opt for the old regime, but there are trade offs, correct?
Exactly. The new tax regime is the default option starting April 1st, 2023. So unless you choose otherwise, that's what you're on. It's automatic.
Gotcha. But they mention limited deductions in the new regime. Is it a lot less beneficial for people who are used to claiming all those standard deductions?
Well, that's the catch, isn't it? The new regime offers lower rates, but you get fewer deductions. So if you're someone who uses a bunch of tax saving investments, it might not be a good thing. It's like a trade off, less complexity for fewer tax breaks.
That makes sense. So it really depends on your individual financial situation and how much you invest or save. That's something to think about before deciding which to opt for.
Precisely. For some people, the old regime with all the exemptions will be more beneficial, while others might prefer the new one and pay a bit less. And I think it's important for people to really evaluate which is better for them.
Well, do you think most people understand that, or are they just going to go with the default because they don't want to do extra paperwork?
Well, that's a fair point. People often go with whatever's easiest. It's up to each individual to make an informed decision, of course.
So, this also mentioned a tax rebate under Section 87A. What's that all about?
Ah, yes, that's quite interesting. So, if your net taxable income is up to 12 lakhs, you might not have to pay any tax at all. It's a significant amount of income that's exempt.
Wow, that's really helpful for lower income groups, it seems. It's a solid move.
Yes, absolutely. And that's a good thing. It offers relief for a lot of people, especially those just starting their careers. And, that also kind of cushions the impact of the change in slabs for some.
And what about the standard deduction? Does the new tax regime still have the standard deduction for salaried folks?
So, from what I'm understanding, it seems that the new tax regime does allow the standard deduction and employer contribution to NPS, which is good.
Okay, so that's something. That's good to know. And it's also great that they've added a lower surcharge on high income earners, it seems.
Yes, the surcharge on incomes above 2 crore is down to 25% in the new tax regime, which might benefit high net worth individuals a bit. It's like if you're already wealthy, here's another little perk.
So the government is trying to make the new regime attractive to people of all income levels. Is that right?
That's what it appears like, yeah. They are adjusting things to hopefully make it appealing for most.
Well, so with all these changes, how does someone choose the better tax regime? It sounds confusing.
Well, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? A salaried person has to choose each year at the time of filing. Business owners have a one-time switch.
Yeah, that's kind of complicated. I mean, you need to know exactly where your income and deductions stand to make the best decision.
You really do. It's not a one-size-fits-all situation. You need to calculate how much you'd pay under each regime. It's like, trying on different pairs of shoes to see which fit best.
Right. And I imagine tax planning is about to get more complicated for many people then, especially with all these new options.
It definitely will. People need to be more aware and maybe, even seek help from a professional to make the best choice. This is definitely not an area to take lightly.
So it's like you have to sit down, evaluate your income, and plan ahead to decide which regime is the best fit for your current financial plan.
Exactly. It's not just about taxes today. It's about understanding your financial picture holistically to maximize your financial situation for tomorrow.
Well, this has been really helpful, and it's good to know all these key changes that have been introduced. It seems like a good idea for our listeners to also consult with an expert.
Absolutely. And remember, everyone's situation is unique. Now, if you're enjoying this conversation, please remember to give our YouTube channel a like, share, and subscribe.
So, what is your overall takeaway with all these tax changes? Do you think they are good for the average person?
Well, I think the changes are an attempt to simplify the tax system and maybe encourage more people to pay their taxes. The idea of tax reform is always a hot topic. And in the short term, it might be confusing. But in the long run, it might actually encourage more financial planning.
That's a very good point. And these changes seem to favor people who don't have many deductions, but it is a bit complicated with all of these options.
Yes, there are certainly pros and cons to each, and it really underscores the need for financial literacy and knowing your own situation in detail to understand the impact on your finances.
I guess we should all be brushing up on our tax knowledge, huh?
Definitely. It is something that will be around for the foreseeable future.
So now that we have this update, it will be interesting to see how everyone adapts to the new system. Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. It will definitely be interesting to see how things play out over the next financial year. I mean, will more people switch to the new regime or stick to the old one? Only time will tell.
Well, let's keep an eye on that, and maybe we can talk about this again next year to discuss how it has all impacted us.
That sounds like a plan. It's always good to keep the discussion going, especially when it comes to such important matters.